So now that you have a series of pools constructed, each with its own layer, pool rectangle, pool freeform, and pool hybrid, we're going to move on to start constructing 3 simple shed roof pavilions, all starting from the same profile. So to start the pavilion process, we're going to make a new layer and call that pavilion profile. And here we're going to keep the profile that is used for all 3 pavilions, so that when you change the pavilions, you still have the profile to go back to work with. We'll make its color something very bright, like white. And we'll go ahead and make that the current layer and turn off contours and pool rectangle. So we're going to work in a side view. In this case, I'd probably want it to be the right side view. I like working that way, and I'll maximize this. And we're going to start, as we did before, not by drawing the plan, but by drawing the section of this. I'll place a point at 0, 0, 0, because I like to start at the origin. And again, I'll draw a polyline. In this case, it's going to construct the inside volume of this pavilion. We'll start at 0. And I want this to be 36 feet wide, so 36, return. Hold shift so that it's horizontal. Click. I want to go up 18 feet. Return. Hold shift. Click. Now I want the roof to have a slope. In this case, I want it to be, I want to say, well, at minus 36 feet, because I want it to go back toward the origin. But I want it to go up a total of another 6 feet to 24 feet. So I'll say at minus 36, comma, 6, and that'll give me a point that comes up where I want it to go. And now I simply have to connect back to the origin point to make a closed polyline that represents the inside profile of the pavilion that we want to make. Using this, we can now offset to give us a wall thickness, and I'm going to use the offset command. And I'm going to give it a 1 foot, 1 return thickness, because that's a pretty good thickness for a retaining wall, for a minimum roof thickness, a slab, with insulation. A foot thick is a pretty decent amount of structure to start with, and you can refine this later if you need a thicker roof or something. So now we have a pair of polylines that form the enclosed structure of this pavilion. We want to open it on the tall end, and so we're going to draw a couple of lines. I'm going to zoom into the origin and draw right-click to make a line segment. From the origin, hold shift, a horizontal line, hit return, and I'll take that and I'll offset it upward by, let's say, 3 feet, so that we have a line that we can use to trim this open at the edge of a terrace or a small retaining wall. And I'll make another line segment here. I'll just make this horizontal and hit return, where we're going to trim open at the roof. This will be a pretty clean roof edge. So I'll take these 2 lines now, click on them both, holding shift, and I'll say trim, typed in trim, and I'll select the other parts of the polyline to trim. Now we're done with trimming. I will also go back and I'll use this outer polyline to trim, to get some line segments from those. And I'll just delete the bottom line. So now that you can see, we have the profile of the pavilion, the very basic profile, beginning to take shape. I also want to do another thing before I enclose these 2 polylines and make them a single polyline, and that's to create a beam line. So I'll draw another line segment from the outside of the building down just a certain distance, holding shift to make it orthogonal. You can always click on ortho and click ortho off if you want, but I find it easier just to hold shift when I want something to be orthogonal. And I'm going to take this and I'm going to offset that 12 feet to the right. And then I'm going to give that another offset of 12 inches. In this case, I'll put 1 because we're working in feet, not 12. 12, again, would get you 12 feet. The number 1 gets you 1 foot. And if you wanted to say 6 inches or 8 inches, you would type in 6 and the inches. And then I'm going to draw another line segment here horizontally. If I zoom in, and I'll offset that 12 inches downward, and then delete the input. And I'll use this to create a little beam line where a line of columns will exist in the future. So I'll do a trim, selecting all of these lines, and I'll just trim away the pieces that I don't want. To change the exterior profile of this, I'll delete the input line and step back. And what I see here is a good profile for the structure that I want in its basic form and section. Remember, in the future, there will be a line of columns here underneath this beam, and we're going to, in the next step, make an interior volume as well. But for now, this we can join, using the join command, into a single polyline that we can use to create the section of the pavilion. As I said, we're going to next draw another polyline. In this case, we'll start from the midpoint in height of the lower wall. We will come to the left a total of 12 feet, holding shift so that that's perfectly horizontal. And then we'll come down to the floor. The reason that I'm able to do this by selecting the midpoint immediately or the intersection is because my object snaps are on for midpoint and intersection. So now I have a two-part polyline. I'm going to offset that again by 1 foot inward. And so now I have a small room that can be used as a changing room or bathrooms or support for a kitchen or something. And to complete this, this is now a pair of polylines. I'm going to make some line segments across from the endpoints of those. And I'm going to select all of those, and I'm going to join those again into an enclosed polyline. So we have two enclosed polylines that we will use to create the solid surfaces of the pavilion itself. So if I go to perspective and zoom in, we can see that we have a nice cross-sectional profile. We'll select the outer one and say solid, extrude planar curve straight, and the both sides yes selection is on. So we're starting from this as the center line of this, and we're going out in two directions. You could do this as in a single direction, but I like working from the middle of things quite often. And we'll give it a distance of 30 feet so that in the end we have a 60-foot long pavilion shell, a roof for the pavilion. Now we're going to do a similar thing with this interior profile, and we're going to say extrude. In this case, maybe not both sides, so we'll say both sides no, and we'll select one side and give it a distance of 20 feet so that it doesn't entirely fill the end. We'll have a little outdoor area to get to a changing room or a bathroom. And we're starting to get an architectural volume made up pretty quickly, starting in section. There are other things we can add to this. We can draw end walls if we want to, and we will want to at some point. But for now, we have the basics of this pavilion. And so I'll stop there.